primary school in Kent is asking parents for money every month because it says school funding has turned from a difficult situation into a crisis. The Anthony Roper Primary School in Ainsford near Sevenoaks says that trying to make more savings would have a negative impact on its children's education. Briohny WIlliams has more.
Shocked, angry and annoyed. This group of parents all have children who go to Anthony Roper Primary School. They've all received a letter asking for a monthly donation of £10 per pupil.
Disgusted, really. We pay our taxes to pay into education, and the fact we've had to pay twice, it isn't fair.
First of all, it's terrible that this has come to this. Obviously, other parents feel it's taken a long time for us to get here, but where does it stop?
Well, I was disgusted, like everybody else. I haven't talked to any parent that isn't shocked.
Debbie Empted has 2 boys who go to the school. She says she's worried about managing her own finances if she has to pay out for her children's education.
I'm completely horrified. I can't believe that our education system has now got to the point where head teachers are having to send home begging letters. I'm doing all I can to keep, food on the table at home, and to be asked to suddenly find an extra £20 a month to fund the school, which I will do if it means an education for my children, but it's going to mean that they miss out on something else.
No one from the school would speak to me, but I've seen a copy of the letter. It says without extra funding, it may look to reduce school hours. It also states that some activities could be reduced or stopped, which the school finds unacceptable. The letter also blames the national funding formula for a shortfall in the school's budget. Money from central government for schools has stayed relatively flat over the past 5 years. The national funding formula was introduced to try and make it a fairer system across the country when it comes to cash being allocated for education. The policy reform has been hailed the biggest to school funding in the past 20 years. On the whole, the new formula has given pupils in Kent some help, but primary schools in the southeast are allocated less cash than most other areas. In Kent, primary school children receive around £700 less than their counterparts in Liverpool, for example. And in East Sussex, children receive around £500 less than those in Croydon.
Kent overall is a pretty low-funded area in the context of the country overall for education. That's something we've been campaigning for a long time to change. And there's been a little bit of progress on that with what's called the national funding formula, but there's a lot further to go. Add to that the fact that what you've seen in recent years is some increases in funding going to schools, but the number of pupils increasing significantly. Plus, you add in increasing demands for what is called high needs funding as well. Put all that together, and schools don't really have the wherewithal to be able to deal with the costs with their own costs as they rise, and so you do see these pressures.
Well, the government says it's investing in our education system, and our national funding formula is giving every local authority more money for every pupil. The Anthony Roper Primary School will attract an additional 4.8% per pupil by 2020. Even so, Sevenoaks MP Michael Fallon says he's speaking to education ministers about the situation in Kent.
The situation at Anthony Roper is not acceptable, and I want to change it. The government is trying to equalise the amount of money that goes to each pupil across the country. Traditionally, London and the big cities have got far more than the shire counties. In order to change that, the government has protected the budgets in London and the big cities, and they will only slowly reduce in comparison with Kent and the shire counties. That isn't right. We need to speed up the uniform formula so that more rural counties like Kent do get more, and we're working with government ministers to try and get them to agree that.
The parents have now started a petition to try and get extra funding for the school because they're not only worried for their children, but also for the next generation.